Hello, this is Georgia 551, bringing you the current state of the Solomon Pond Mall, Marlborough, Mass. We start at the Sears because this is recorded the same day that I did the second video for the downfall of the Sears. So I went through here the day I did the first one, but I wasn't recording this, and I found that the first floor looked rather bleak, so you can kind of tell right here at the Sears wing that there isn't much there. So I just stayed on the first level just to get what I needed to get done, and then headed back home. And I figure this was worth looking at because, as I said, and as you're going to see, the first floor doesn't really look that great. Now, the mall is fairly busy and it has fairly good foot traffic, but a lot of big vacancies on the first floor. And this is the funny thing, is next to this Claire's is this is a mall entrance, but there's a pointless walkway on the second floor. In fact, you kind of look at it near the end because for a minute I thought it was a dead anchor that was walled off and forgot that it was an entryway. It would have been nice to have had a window there or something like that. Anyway, this is on the 4th of, not the 4th, it's the April 2nd, 2021. The date is set correctly this time, and this is a hidden camera, so it's set and forgotten about, so if it's flopping, listing, or wobbling around, it is what it is, because it don't want to bring attention to it. Even though Simon does allow photo videography nowadays because they caught up with the times, unlike many other mall owners. So this is kind of an interesting mall. The fact I thought this would be the one that would be doing really well. Someone was telling me the one in Auburn was doing really bad, but in fact it was just a handful of stores. One of them was a big one, but wasn't doing too bad. So anyway, some interesting little factoids, and it's off the top of my head through personal experience and history that I know of, is that way back in the mid-60s, Worcester built the Galleria Mall, or was building it. Then it looked less attractive as the Auburn Mall was built, and it had higher-end stores and less of a crime rate. So then the Galleria closed ultimately in the late 80s, when just a little further in the other direction, the Greendale Mall opened up, which was a small shopping center that had every important store that most people would want to see. This vacancy I never quite understood. It was there before, I just don't see what that was. And here's the Apple store being all holier than thou. But then again, to be fair, it seemed Microsoft copied that, and their store seems to be a bit snobbish too. There's a toy store that doesn't seem to be open. Anyway, so in the mid-90s, this place opened, and that, for the most part, slowly killed off Greendale to the point that it died. The last video I did there was actually for the elevator enthusiast crowd, but then I decided I would go around and look in every single dead store that was in the Greendale Mall by putting the camera up to the door, no trying to enter or anything. And that was the last video, literally a week before pandemic shutdowns took effect. So here we kind of have a very dark hallway with another big store that's closed as we have reached the other side where Macy's is. And as I've said, this is according to the title, the Tale of Two Levels, because as I mentioned before when I was shopping, this level looks like the mall's in very big trouble. But when you get to the top, while there are vacancies, it's not as bad. Not even Not even close, actually. And over here, another big vacancy and a hallway, which there is a restaurant and a shop at the far end. That almost kind of reminds me of the old days at the Liberty Tree Mall, where there was a corridor and you went way to the back, and there used to be an Aladdin's castle there. So there we go, you can get the Bertucci's in the fan zone, which for some reason wasn't open. It looks like it's a thing, just not open. And the time that I was here before, I also didn't bother recording it as well because it was getting dark, and for some reason Simon didn't really want to turn the lights on, so the video would have looked like crap. So we're doubling back towards the Sears, showing you the other side of the mall. And I try to walk slow so the video quality is a little better. If I try walking fast, then the camera will flop around, tilt more, maybe even sway. So yeah, try to go nice and slow just to keep things the way, just to try to make it presentable. And there's that open-ended storefront that who knows what it was. And the interesting part about this little bend in the road is that it's literally curved. And I helped myself to some hand sanitizer at that point. We also went on this side of the aisle because the kids lining up to see the Easter Bunny were taking up the other hall. And of course, the way things are right now, it's best to stay away and go on the other side, leaving it a little crowded in one area. Small pinch in traffic. Other than that, there's yet another vacancy that exists. As I also like to say, that this is B material on this channel. This is not my main goal. So there's other people that do this stuff professionally. If you want the really high quality stuff or want them to see the places I've been, you can contact Sal. You could contact Wally B. You could also do retail archaeology, as well as the funny thing is, during the Sears one that I just finished, I forgot one of them, and now I forgot another one of them. And here's someone who was way too busy paying attention to their phone instead of watching where she was going with the motorized animal. So, as I said, this floor, it looks pretty bad, but it gets better up on the second level. In fact, the food court actually does pretty well here. In fact, it's pretty big. And they also have a carousel, which they actually are using. And of course, because of the pandemic, the karaoke booths are down. They don't want to keep cleaning those every 5 seconds. So as we're heading back towards the Sears and the escalators, so we can check out the second level, be a little bit of a repeat here and there. And here's where they were desperate to fill a small space, an arcade that's really not much of anything. So, this is pretty much what the first floor of the mall looks like. And back to the dead area, and it's going to be even more dead when the Sears is gone, because that's pretty much one of the only things here outside of this Oriental City. And this massage parlor. Those are pretty much the only things that are going to be left. So, up the escalator and let's look at the second level. Here we are in the second level. Of course, at the very beginning, it's not looking as promising. But as we go along, you'll see that this floor actually is doing better. We got the the giant shoe department store there. So, of course, it's also better lit. Of course, it's also better lit when it's daytime. It was, like I said, pretty dark the last time I was here, and surprisingly, the upstairs was actually darker, so it was really hard to see anything. It would have been a horrible video. There's a Toy Vault vintage toy store. Never seen one of those in person. Well, can't say that now. It took me a while to figure out what this Battlestar was. Figured it might have been some sort of entertainment thing because of all the black walls. And they have an airsoft game that's right there up front, target practice. Probably some other things, maybe laser tag as well. Another closed storefront over there. And then the J.C. Penney wing, which pretty much is pretty much full. Seems to be in a lot of these Simon malls that the jewelry stores happen to be either where the J.C. Penney is, if it's a side anchor, or the Macy's, if it's a side anchor. But in this mall, the Macy's is actually a head anchor at the other end. So we got a family over here that's not paying attention and also not following the arrows on the floor, which personally my thing on the arrows on the floor is if no one's around or you're not impeding traffic, then you know, press your luck with that. Otherwise, if there's a crowd coming and you're going the wrong way, you're looking self-centered. And as you've noticed, as I've said, that there's still plenty of vacancies, but it's nowhere near as big and nowhere near as bad as the first floor. And there's the food court. And yes, on the way back, when we head towards the Sears yet again, we will walk through it. It's actually doing fairly well. And unlike Auburn Mall, this one's actually open and it has seating. The ones in Auburn were open, but it was takeout only, which kind of hurt them because you could tell there was a lot of idling around by employees at the restaurants that were in the Auburn Mall versus this one where people can sit down. So we're now on the final stretch heading towards the Macy's, and being that this store, to the best of my knowledge, is not suffering. In fact, it had a fairly full parking lot. So I think this Macy's is going to last quite a bit longer than most. And of course, the big H&M right next to the Macy's. And there's, yet again, what's funny about this part is, just like on the first level, there's a dead vacant store literally on top of a dead vacant store. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised at how busy this mall is, being that it was Good Friday, and pretty much this is not a holiday by any means. So the schools were in, most workplaces were open. It's funny to see so many people. Anyway, here's a dead store, and that's pretty much what we could see. I have no idea what it was. It might have been a salon. Trying to say salon, almost said saloon. I don't think they'd have one of those next to a Macy's. And then there's the big H&M, and of course now we're going to double back towards Sears and look the other way. It's just much easier to do it like this, where look down the opposite end of the mall so you can clearly see what's there, instead of being, right next to the stores and aiming towards them, where it's really hard to truly get a scope of the vacancies or the occupancies. Of course, the latter is a better thing. And there's the Aeropostale or Aristotle, or whatever I want to call it at any given point. As I've noticed, a lot of times when I'm doing these things, I'm thinking the right words, and then I listen to the video and the wrong ones come out instead. Yeah, minor grammatical issues, whatever, I let them live. I always wonder about these Hollisters. Is that a projection display, or is that a physical display there? I don't really bother going in to see, nor care. Anyway, here's the food court, and it's busy, and yes, the merry-go-round is still being used. I don't know if you saw it when we first were going by, but it was on at the time. Of course, a Dunkin' Donuts at the very beginning. Of course, we have to have that. And then Pizzeria Regina, I miss those. That's a Boston chain that's supposed to be based on an actual Boston pizzeria, but supposedly, from what I understand, the Boston pizzeria being the original thing is way better than the commercialized franchise. Never been to the original thing, so I could take their word for it. It's still not bad stuff. And there's 2 restaurants over here that did not survive. I have a feeling one of them must have been a Subway. I'm not saying the one with the subs on it was, but it probably was. Seems to make sense. And then here's a smoothie bar, and I've been earlier go looking at the scope of the whole thing, just to show you what it looks like from afar. And there was a smoothie bar that we went by. Can't even tell you what the name of that store in the far left was. I was looking at it and I couldn't quite figure it out. Then again, I'm not really a mall rat. I just do these things because people find it interesting, and even I, way back when, found malls that are either struggling, rebounding, or failing to be interesting. Although, of course, it's good to see them rebound. But it would even be better if they didn't struggle to begin with. But this one doesn't seem to be doing horrendously. Yeah, it's got some battle scars, probably most of it being COVID related. But yeah, there's definitely some battle scars here, surprisingly more than the Auburn Mall, which is the other mall they own 20 miles up the road. I would have figured that this would be the champion and the other one would be the one dying. For all I know, they could be taking all the good stores from Auburn Mall at some point and moving them here into the vacant ones, then ultimately trying to turn the Auburn Mall into more low-cost and local establishments. Kind of like what happened to Liberty Tree Mall. I'm not sure who owns that, but that used to be a shopping mall of pristine. Then across the street, the North Shore Mall expanded and became a 2-story. It took pretty much all the business away from the Liberty Tree. So then the Liberty Tree became discounts, movie theaters, and other shops that you generally wouldn't find in a fairly decent or high-end shopping center. And here's where I thought, because of poor design, that this was a anchor store, but in fact it was the exterior wall. Would have been nice to have windows. Yeah, I'm trying to look for all the vacancies and see how well this place is doing. And yeah, I did fall for that one. And as we go by this toy store, just take a quick peek in as we waltz on by. There's a lot of stuff in there. That's a lot of vintage stuff. And Newberry Comics. I haven't seen one of those in many, many moons. For those of you that are not from New England or the Boston area, think of Newbury Comics as a really, really big Spencer's. Just a lot bigger. So that's pretty much it here. We just got one more little hall to look down. And again, similar thing, there's a restaurant at the very end, and it's a Fridays. Interesting that these corridors are as dark as they are. And once again, we're at the Sears. And that'll be it. And that's the state of the mall. So there you have it. This is what Solomon Pond Mall is like on April 2nd, 2021. When I first walked through here, I was surprised at how bad things originally looked, but it seemed that it was only the first floor that's suffering really badly, if you can call it that. It was also dark, so it just made everything look worse. But anyway, there's plenty of traffic, plenty of people. I have a feeling that once the pandemic is over, Simon's going to solve the vacancy problems. There were quite a few big ones in there, quite a few small ones, but yeah, the mall's hurting a little bit. Yeah, it is. But is it struggling? Probably not. My guess is they might ultimately shelve the Auburn Mall, perhaps, because this is Simon's other property that's like 20 miles away or so, and this is 2 stories. So I could see either Auburn Mall closing or the Auburn Mall being repurposed more, local fare and, lower end retail. That's where I could see that going. It's not really doing all that bad. In fact, this place, I speak too fast. This place is doing worse, but it's not worse for wear. It's doing all right. And the Sears Auto Center is used for COVID testing. And part of the parking lot is a giant school bus field. So they're apparently making rent that way as well. So yeah, it's struggling, but yeah, not struggling. There's the corral if my fingers aren't in the way. There we go. Phone quality video for you. Why camcorders will never be replaced. This is George F551 saying hope you enjoyed and have a good one. Doesn't want to focus on them at all, does it?